Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this webinar. I'm Evelyn. I'm the Senior Regulatory Analyst at Foresight. Today, we will talk about the food additives in China. The topic will be divided into four parts. And in the first part, I will talk about the legal framework about the food additives. And moving on to the second part, I will show you how to use the JB2760. And in the third part, I will share some typical case studies. And finally, in the first part, we will have the question and answer section. But feel free to drop your question and time in the chat area. Now let's begin with the brief overview of the framework for food additives in China. Before to introduce the legal framework, let's see the competent authorities related to the food additives first. As we all know that China has established a very solid and complex system to regulate and manage food additives. Under the current food supervisory system, the SAMR takes a comprehensive control over the production, circulation, and the catering service of the food additives. And the NHC formulates the national food safety standards for food additives and be responsible for registration of the new food additives. The JCC is responsible for the inspection and the quarantine of the imported and the export food additives. The basic regulation related to food product and food additives in China are the Food Safety Law of the PRC and the implementing regulations of the Food Safety Law. But beyond that, we still have many specific standards. And there are four main types of the food safety standards. Firstly, we have the usage standards with the JB2760 being the most important one. This standard specifies the principles for the application of the food additives, including the alloyed variety and their max levels or residue levels. It also outlines the categories of the food in which the use of the certain food additives is prohibited or restricted. However, it's important to note that the nutritional fortification substances are not in these standards. It has the exclusive standards, the JB14880. Another point worth mentioning is that the JB2760 doesn't include the newly registered or approved food additives after 2014. Any food additives registered or approved after 2014 will be included in the individual announcement by the competent authorities. Therefore, if you want to check the standards for food additives, you are not only to refer to the JB276, but also check the announcement. And I would like to recommend our company's database, which provides the convenient way to search for the food additives. You don't have to separately check the announcement as our database integrates all the relevant information. And I will show you how to use the database later. And the second type of the standards for food additives is the specification standards. These standards mainly include the detailed requirements for the raw material used in the food additives, such as the sensory requirements, physical and chemical indicators. And currently, there are more than 2,000 specification standards for food additives. And here we also have the labeling standards, the JB 29924 and the JB 77818. And the last type of the standard is food additive manufacturing practices. This includes the JB 31647, which stipulates the basic requirements and management guidelines for the procuring, processing, packaging, labeling, storing and transportation of the raw materials in the production process of the food additives, and as well as the requirements for production sites, facilities, and the personnel. In addition, we also have the administrative measures on the new food additives and the announcement issued by the NHC regarding the 3 new foods, and so on. And today we will focus on the second part, the main standard regulating the use of the food additives in China, which is the 2760. This standard consists 2 parts, the main text and the appendix. The main text primarily covers the definition of the food additives principle for their use and the food classification system and so on. The appendix section includes the 6 different appendices, and the scope of the JB2760 includes the principles for the application of the food additives, the permitted variety of the food additives, the scope of the application, and the max levels or the residue levels. And in the JB276, the definition of the food additives is an artificially chemosynthetic or natural substance to be added in food in order to improve the food quality, color, fragrance, and taste, and for the purpose of the preservation and the processing technology. Flavoring substance, gum-based substance in the paste-based candy, processing aids in the food industry are also included in the food additives. It means that in China, all these substances fall under the management of the food additives. However, it's important to note that the nutritional fortification substances are not currently included in the GB760. It has their own standards, the GB14880, and the GB2760 has the different tables in the different appendices, which are not very straightforward, but the main content actually in this standard is the appendix. Now let's take a look at the Appendix A. We have the provisions for use of food additives, excluding the food flavoring substance and the food processing aid. The Appendix A contains 3 tables, so the Table A includes the additives permitted for using specific food categories, as well as the corresponding max dosage or residue levels. And here we have the standard screenshot. We can see that the name of the food additives and the CNS number and the INS number. The CNS number means the Chinese number system, and the INS number is the international number system. So the INS number is quite useful, especially when you are labeling or carrying food additives. In this picture, it also shows the function, food category number, and food category, and the max level, and the other information such as the residue limit in the note, and other information such as the specific application requirements and the text methods also will be marked in the notes section. And when you want to use the food additives, you need to apply these requirements. Well, for the table A2, it might be a little bit complex, as it includes the food additives that can be used in all types of the foods at appropriate dosage according to the production requirements. However, the food categories listed in the table A3 cannot use the food additives listed in the table A2, unless there is a specific requirement specified in the table A1. And except the previous requirements, the table A3 prohibits the use of the food additives permitted in the higher level food categories for lower level food categories. For example, the nothing with the INS number 234 is permitted to be added in the milk and dairy products, which is the higher level category, with the food category number is 01.0 here. We might think that all the milk and dairy products can be added niacin, but here we can see it's excluding the product in the category 01.01.01 and 01.01.02 and 13.0. So it means the niacin cannot added in those three food categories. And to simplify the understanding of this provision, we have created a flowchart here. You can get the accurate provision of the food additives. The first step is to check whether the food category is listed in the table A3. If it is, then go to check the table A1 directly, because no matter the food additives in table A2 or not, the only one can define the food additives can be used in the food categories or not is in the table A1. On the other hand, if the food category is not listed in the table A3, you'd better check the table A1 and A2 both to see whether it is both in the both table. And here we have the two examples to explain the independent Appendix A. The first example is about can xanthan gum can be used in cream. The first step is to find the category number of the cream. It's in the Appendix E, is 01.05.01, and we go back to the Appendix A to find the cream, whether the cream is listed in the table A3. Then we find that, and then we go back to find the page of the xanthan gum in the Appendix F. The page number is 42. So we go back to the Appendix A. We can find the xanthan gum, and the cream is also in this table. So the conclusion is the xanthan gum can be used in cream, and the max level is the GMP. And the next example is about can processed cheese contain the beta-carotene. The first step, we also need to find the processed cheese category number in the Appendix A is 01.06 and 0.04. And we go back to check whether the processed cheese is listed in the table A3. And we didn't find that, so we need to find whether the beta-carotene is listed in the table A2, and we also didn't find it. So we go to the Appendix F to find the page of the beta-carotene directly, and we find the page number is 37. So we go back to the Appendix A to find that the food additives, and we find that the beta-carotene and also find the processed cheese in this table. So the conclusion is the beta-carotene can be used in processed cheese, and the max level is 1 gram per kilogram. Here we go to the Appendix B. This appendix is much easier to understand. It covers the rules for the use of the food flavoring substance. In Appendix B, there are also three tables: the purpose of the flavoring substance and the flavoring in food is produce, change, or improve the flavor of food. This means the basic flavors like sugar, vinegar, or salt are not included here. They are considered as the food raw material in China. If you want to check the standards for sugar or vinegar, you need to refer to the specific national food safety standards, such as the 13104 for sugar. Appendix B in the JB 2760 is focusing on the food flavoring substance and essences. Here also a flowchart. If you want to check whether the food flavoring substance can be added in food, the first step is to go to the table B1 to find whether the food is listed on it. And if the food category is listed on the table B1, it means it's prohibited. You can't add any flavoring substance. And if the food category is not listed in the table B1, you can then check the desired food additive in either table B2 and B3. So let's go to the Appendix C. Appendix C is about the prevalence for the use of the processing aids in the food industry. This part also has the three tables. The first table, Table C, provides a list of processing aids that can be used in all kinds of the food processing without any limitation on the residue amount. And the table C2 lists processing aids that have the limited scope of use. This means they are only allowed in certain food categories. The last table, Table C3, is list enzyme preparations for food, including their source and donors. To find the specific food additives, this query process is quite straightforward. Firstly, check if the designed processing aid is an enzyme preparation. If it is, refer to the table C3. If not, you can refer to the table C1 or C2 to find it. And when you're using the table C2, please pay attention to the scope of use. And Appendix D is about the function of the food additives. And there are 22 functions here. We can see that. I have emphasized that the 22 functions are quite important because it not only can check the functions of the existing food additives, but also when applying for the new food additives. The functional categories can also be very helpful. If you want to know more about the new food additives, you can go our website to learn the related course. We have already uploaded a video record on it. And the Appendix E, which is the food category system, and which listed all the categories and the category numbers as defined. As we mentioned that before, it can help the important food find the suitable food category. And the Appendix F can quickly find the page here the food additives is located. And in the JB2760, there is a special principle. It's the carryover principle. And here I give an two examples to explain it. Let's look at the left side example firstly. It's about the benzoic acid and pseudobenzoate. These additives are not allowed to be used in cooked meat products, but they are allowed in soy sauce. Therefore, if these food additives are detected in the cooked meat product that contains soy sauce as an ingredient, it can be considered compliant with the carryover principle. And so it's important for food producer to correctly label the ingredients used in their products. And however, for example, intentionally adding a large amount of antioxidants to the food ingredients to increase the shelf life doesn't comply with the carryover principle. And another situation is when a food ingredient is used in the production of the specific final product. In such case, food additives provide a final product can be added to the food ingredients, even if an food additive may not be allowed or have any effect in the ingredient itself. It can be added under the carryover principle. And for example, you can see the right example here. The beta carotene, which is normally used as the colorant in cakes, but it's not allowed in edible vegetable oil. However, it can be added to the oil used in cake production under the carryover principle to enhance the color. So, in conclusion, using the processing aids correctly in food production is essential to ensure the food safety and quality of the final product. As the food producer, it's our responsibility to uphold these requirements and provide the consumer with the safe and high quality food. And here I want to emphasize that besides the GB2760, we also have some announcement for food additives registered or approved after 2014. But these food additives are not included in the current version. So if you don't find the designed food additives in the GB2760, it's better check the related announcement as well. It's a little bit difficult to find the design food additives at once. And if you didn't find the food additives in the JB276 or the announcement, it means that the food additives cannot used in China. It might generally take a lot of time to determine whether the food additives can be used in China. Unfortunately, our company has the database of all food additives. It's very convenient to inquire about the food additives, and I will display the database later, and there's no charge for this database. This is the homepage of the JB2760 database. And here we can see the different food categories and the general principle. We can also click the button above to see the information on each page. And here I will show two methods to find the designed food additives. The first method is to find the food additives based on the food category, and the second method is to find the food additives by additives names or INS number. And if I want to know what food additives can be added to the mooncake, and if I'm familiar with the food category, I can locate the mooncake. Then I click the plus sign to expand the content to find the mooncake. It's in the bakery food. And next in this page, I can click the mooncake here in the blue letter. And now I can see the other food additives that can be added to mooncake. And we can see the functions, max levels, and other requirements of the food additives. In the remark section, it's matched with the note section in the JB2760. And for the second method, if you know the food additives names or NS number, you can search it using the search bar here. If I want to find the guar gum, then I input name or the NS number here and click the research button. Search button and click the Chinese name in the blue letter here. Now I can access all the information about the guar gum, and you can see this part is required to use it in the limited amount, and this part is used in accordance with the GMP. And you can also use the database to find the processing aids, food enzyme preparation, and food flavorings. Now let's go to the third part, the case study. The first case study is about the goat foil. I learned that the goat foil is edible in some countries, but in China it's not. In this case, the goat foil is added into cake as a food additive. During the inspection, an officer found that opened the goat foil bottle in the cake processing room, and the goat foil was completely used up. The cake maker had added it to the cake. So the goat foil is prohibited as a food additive or food raw material in China. So according to the food safety law, the cake shop was fined 100,000 yuan as an administrative penalty. And the second case study is about the imported food that's not allowed to enter China. And this information also available in our company's database. Statistic for the first half of this year, we find that among the reasons for non-compliance of the imported food, the food additives rank the top 3. It occupies over 1% of the production. Analyzing this data, we find that the main reasons for non-compliance of the food additives were out of range, overuse, and the legal added. And product compliance is very important for the imported food. And if you have any questions, please come to us for help. And now let's take a look at this Q&A section. I think I have answered the question that we collected earlier during the presentation. Now let's see the chat area. I think there's no more question here. Someone are interested in import standards for spices, chocolate, and coffees. I'm not quite sure what questions is here, so please send your detailed questions to our email and I will reply it later. I think he's no more questions here. And thanks once again for joining us today. And you can contact us according to these ways. And please subscribe our LinkedIn or WeChat account to get the latest news. And see you next time.